Hi, welcome back to another video. If you're new around here, my name is Bex and I make cosy content on family, food and home. And today I wanted to talk to you about wholehearted parenting. I have a website which is bexmassey.co.uk and I go into a bit more detail on wholehearted parenting, what it is and how to start on this particular blog post here, which I will leave a link to in the description box below. So let's get on. I first heard of the word wholeheartedness when I watched Brené Brown's very famous TED Talk. I first decided to watch a TED Talk because I have always been someone who cares far too much about what other people think of me, and I was sick of it and wanted to find a way of getting around it or finding a way of dealing with it. She talks about the origin of the word courage, which comes from the Latin cor, which means heart. So if you are a courageous person, then you are someone who lives and loves with your whole heart. So when I watched the TED Talk, I realised that I wanted to live a more wholehearted life. I wanted to be braver with my life. I wanted to learn how to not put the fear of what others thought of me ahead of my sort of desire to do things. And then when I became a parent and had my little boy, it became even more important to me because I don't want to pass on this worry about what other people think of me. I don't want my little boy to have to hustle for his self-worth. I wanted my little boy to sort of feel comfortable with who he is and to not have to hide who he is or to sort of feel that he has to hide certain parts of himself to be accepted by others, and I didn't want him to have to hustle for his worth. So that's why I became really interested in the whole concept of what it means to live wholeheartedly. So what is wholehearted parenting and how do you start and what do you do? So the aim of wholehearted parenting is to bring up a child who has a sense of self-worth and healthy boundaries, that they feel love and compassion for themselves and for others, that they have the courage to be flawed and vulnerable and creative, and perhaps most importantly that they have a deep sense of authenticity and being true to themselves, and that they engage with their world and its changes with courage and grit and spirit. And what I realised is that I can't give my son what I don't have already, and so I have really started to try and go on a journey to do those things for myself. And I think where this came from is when I really struggled with infertility. I struggled an awful lot with shame. I felt a deep sense of shame that my body couldn't do what I felt came naturally to other women, and I felt very fearful of the idea of not becoming a mother. And so when I finally was able to hold my little boy, I made a promise to myself and I made a promise to him that I would learn to embrace my imperfections and sort of be kinder to myself and less fearful of what others think of me, so that I could teach him how to do the same. It is challenging because it's having to undo years and years of learned behaviour around the negative self-talk that you have about yourself. So I can't lie, it is tricky at times, but it's so worth it. What are the features of wholehearted parenting then? First off, I think it's really important to say it isn't a gift. It is definitely something, a skill that you can learn, a set of skills really that you can learn, and you just have to practice them. These are some of the features, but like I said in my blog post on wholehearted parenting, I go into this in an awful lot more detail. A few of the things that I have started to try and put in place is that I have tried to recognise what my own self-protection mechanisms are. I would say a lot of my self-protection mechanisms are achievement and academic orientated really. I was a teacher for 10 years, and I think it's probably no accident that that happened, because I was very much praised and rewarded for academic achievement. If you're a perfectionist, somewhere along the line a damaging belief system has been established that you are what you accomplish, and people who are perfectionists quite often tend to also be people pleasers. So you learn how to perfect, perform and please to gain a sense of self-worth. So I've had to learn really what my self-protection mechanisms are, and they are perfectionism and people pleasing, really. I'm having to work quite hard on the idea that done is better than perfect. So for example, this video that you're watching now, there will probably be imperfections with the editing and the lighting, but I'm just having to learn that done is better than perfect. Another sort of self-protection mechanism that I have is trying to keep myself below the parapet. So trying to keep myself small, really. I play safe. I get very cautious about taking opportunities and chances in case I screwed them up. And so I'm having to really push myself out of my comfort zone and do things that feel a bit scary, a bit risky, and learn to feel comfortable with risk and with doing things that may not actually work out. And another thing that I'm trying to do is to set aside a certain amount of time each week to focus on personal development. So I'm listening to an awful lot of podcasts, I'm reading books by people who inspire me like Brené Brown, and books by women who have gone out and taken risks and stopped playing small. So I've been really inspired by Jo Malone's autobiography, which I'll leave linked below, which deals with how she began her business and her diagnosis with breast cancer at the height of it, to her walking away from her company to focus on getting better, and then to her setting up her new company but not being able to use her name, which was so synonymous with her brand. I've done a video on my top 5 podcasts for creatives, which I'll leave linked up here somewhere for you. So yeah, I would really recommend podcasts and just setting aside half an hour a day to just read for your own interest and your own development. With wholehearted parenting, it's really important that you are who you want your children to be. If you want your children to be kind and empathetic towards each other and patient, then you have to cultivate that within yourself. You will fail miserably at this from time to time, and that's okay. On those occasions, just explain to your children why you messed up and what you need to do to put it right. Biggest thing that you can do if you want to start being a wholehearted parent is to be vulnerable. People often confuse vulnerability with weakness, and it couldn't be further than the truth. Vulnerability is, according to Brené Brown, our closest measure of courage. Vulnerability often comes down to uncertainty, risk and emotional exposure, and it feels damned uncomfortable. Because we confuse it with weakness, we often do anything that we can to avoid being vulnerable. Because we feel that people will take advantage of our vulnerability. But the tricky thing about that is vulnerability is also where the good stuff happens. It's the birthplace of creativity, connection, love, belonging, happiness. It's the source of everything that we crave from a happy, fulfilled, content life. So we have to learn to get comfortable with being vulnerable. There's a difference between being vulnerable and letting everything hang out. The key with vulnerability is that you are only vulnerable with the people who deserve to hear your story. So vulnerability minus boundaries isn't vulnerability. So you have to choose very carefully whose opinions you value. Brené Brown really recommends having a tiny post-it note, maybe about this size, and you just write the names of the people who fit on that piece of paper, whose opinions you trust and value, and the rest, fuck 'em. So that's really what I have to say today about wholehearted parenting. If you would like more information on it and you'd like to know step by step what you need to do really in order to get started with wholehearted parenting, then hop on over to my blog post and have a read. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, share it with someone that you think will find it useful, and I would love you to subscribe and hit the bell just below so you are notified of all my videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!